Everyone, thank you so much for joining this meetup today. So Susana and I are really excited to talk about our pretty recent experience in scaling up mobile apps in web environments. We do hope that you will find it interesting as much as we find it interesting, and that the story and insight that we share in the next 30-40 minutes approximately may help you in the way you work and in how you collaborate with other teams. But before we go further into this topic, let's start by a quick introduction of ourselves.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Susana, and I work at Manomano as a mobile lead of the B2B application. I'm actually a mechanical engineering, but I specialize on software development since the university, and my first job was at G&D as Android developer. I thought I was also doing some iOS development. Then 5 years later, I joined Creative House, a really small startup, as an Android developer, but there it was decided to migrate the application to React Native. And about 3 years ago, I joined Manomano as a React Native developer. And 1 year and a half later, I was promoted to mobile lead at the B2B application.
And I am Grégoire. As you may have noticed, I'm French. It's been almost 10 years that I'm living in Spain. I have also a technical background, as I started as a software engineer in Airbus Defense and Space, working on some radar and communication system. But then I let the technical part aside to do some project management. And in the last year in that company, I finally got into product management also. After that, I got a new PM position at FreeNow, so formerly known as My Taxi on the driver app side, in which I stayed approximately 2 years. And today, well, without big surprise, I'm working at Manomano as lead product manager for the B2B mobile app. And now a few words about Manomano. So for those who don't know the product, it's an e-commerce marketplace specialized in DIY, so do-it-yourself products, home improvements and gardening. It's been created 10 years ago, and we have now reached approximately 1,000 employees that are called Manos and Manas. We are operating now in 6 different countries, and there are 2 platforms, so B2C and B2B for professional users. We are both with Susana working on the B2B platform, but for the sake of simplicity here, we will mainly refer today to the B2C one. So we might sometimes talk about apps in plural, but that's the reason why there are actually 2 mobile apps in Manomano. So as we were saying, Manomano is mainly a website, and it's now aiming at reinforcing its mobile app presence. The apps have been launched almost 2 years ago now, and we have reached more than 6.5 million cumulative downloads with a rating over 4.6 on Android, Google Store, and iOS. So today, thanks to our experience for the last 2 years at Manomano in the mobile apps teams, we will share with you 2 main points. The first one is how are we currently scaling up our mobile app in this web environment that's Manomano. And second one, which is a bit more specific, is like how to change teams culture from web only to web and app. So without further ado, let's begin. So today in this presentation, we will go over 4 parts. The first one is what we call the genesis, so back 2 years ago. And this is where we started that change. How did we start? Second part is about the journey that was a 12 months. This is currently a 12-month journey that we took to drive that change. Third one, we will see a bit the impact that this new collaboration, this new organization has today on us and on our different teams. And finally, we will finish with some takeaway, what we think is key to succeed and reproduce what we've made. So let's start with the genesis.
So as Grégoire already mentioned, Manomano comes from a web company only, and in 2020, it was decided to start the mobile application to cover some client necessities and as well to have more loyal clients. This was implemented on React Native, and the reason for that, it was that almost all the front-end developers at Manomano, they are React developers, so choosing React Native would allow them to join the mobile team at some point if they wanted to or if it was needed. In 2021, there was 2 teams working on the application, the B2B app and the B2C one, and they shared the same code base. And there was 13 teams working in the web and the APIs.
So now that we've got the environment, a bit of business context here to explain why Manomano decided suddenly to set the apps as one of its highest priority and to hopefully reach the level of its website. So the first one is, without big surprise, profitability. You know, this is very current trend in tech those days. So hyper growth is not enough anymore. So we need to generate more customer lifetime value and more margin. Well, good for us. The app users are more loyal with more repeat and repurchase and more retention. Also, second point is when you want to be profitable, you need to reduce a bit your cost. One of the main one is the cost of sales. So this is a metric telling you how much percentage of your profit are cost for the ad. This is not specific to Manomano. Everybody's trying to reduce these specific metrics. And the same, an advantage for us is that the app is a driver of free traffic as the users are more engaged and have normally the app reflex. So to look for a product, they will normally open directly the app instead of going through Google shopping list. And the last one is that we have more and more competitors. So at one point, we have the strong needs to differentiate our value proposition. So differentiate value proposition first from the web, from the website, and secondly from our competitors in order to get new source of revenue and also to get new type of users and foster growth. So 1 year ago, all the management team came to us and told us that we need to define a new product vision and a strong strategy for the apps. So here we were in the situation how to boost the app growth and usage. And to make it also a bit quite simple here, we are focusing here on only two main pillars. First one, without a big surprise, that's what we do best. We wanted to transform the mobile app as the best personalized e-commerce channel. So an experience fully adapted to the mobile apps. Here we set up an objective of increasing the business volume created by the app by 3 in a bit more than a year. And second pillar we had to focus also is to differentiate the value proposition. Here we are aiming to increase engagement in the app, and we will measure our progress here via what we call the app stickiness. So this is an engagement matrix, but here we didn't set any targets as it's more an exploratory phase, so a discovery goal. And actually here started our first problem. Why? First, let me explain you the themes of feature gap between web and app, because that's a common topic that will come in this presentation. As we were two teams in the app, we could not follow the pace of 13 web teams and thus could not deliver as many powerful and impactful features as the web. So the feature gap between web and app was naturally increasing. Problem is that we want to deliver a consistent cross-device experience to our users. So reducing the feature gap became a major topic and kind of a priority for us. So this was my situation, but back at that time, trying to plan a bit my roadmap for the next quarter and struggling to choose between either a feature gap or either the app differentiation. To support our new strategy. But actually it was not, so it was kind of more trivial than that, because first you need to focus on everything that is missing as basic e-commerce on our app, or even trying to implement some performing features that were already providing good outcomes in web. So the choice was that we were more into the feature gap that actually going for some app-specific features, or what we could call also some delighters. So the choice was easy, but kind of boring. I had to close the feature gap. But just by doing this, it was still some issue though. First, because the difficulties to develop a feature that has been thought only for the web. We think about the web environment, understanding needs. There is a different usage and a different persona too. Also, the lack of expertise that we had, as we were only one team that covers the entire funnel, well, sometimes we were lacking a bit of expertise. And also the main problem is that the feature gap was still increasing.
So apart from all the problems more from the product side, we also had problems from the engineering side, especially when developing the mobile application. First of all, the infrastructure is tailored for web development, but not for app. Web is based on cookies, and you can pass information between services with cookies, and this is not possible with the app. Secondly, the team's scopes are the APIs and the web UI, but not the application. This means that whenever there was a change on the website or on the API, on the backend services, the app most of the time was not communicated and maybe it was not behaving as it should. Third, the deployments are different between web and app. All users on the web are always on the last version, but that's not the case for the application. Whenever you publish a new version on the stores, you need to assume that some users will have this version. So you cannot do any breaking change on the APIs. It's necessary to have a good versioning for this. And finally, there is also different screens between web and an app. So the UI is different between one and the other, and maybe the information that you want to display or even the workflows may be different. So the requirements from the API or the information that you need can be also different. Well, after all of this, we clearly saw that we reached the limits of our organization and that was impossible to follow or to achieve the goals that we set up for the application. So we started to explore different options as it was time to change. The first option that we explored, it was to increase the teams working in the apps and have as many teams as working in the web. But it's really hard to find React Native developers, and as well, the organization is more complex. You are sharing knowledge between different teams. So we discarded this option quite quickly. And then we went for a second option, which we called App Missionary. And we actually tried it for a while. And this consists on mobile developers going to the web teams whenever there was a feature that we wanted to be developed for web and mobile. But it has some contrasides. First of all, the mobile developers were losing the feeling of belonging to a single team. They were switching all the time between teams. And as well, it could happen that even the mobile team could be empty and there was actually no one really working on focusing on mobile features because everyone was on other teams. So at the end, it was really hard to scale. So we explore another option, which was to help other teams or other web teams to learn the specificities of the mobile app development so they could actually develop for the mobile application as well. We quickly saw some advantages on this. First of all, as we were mentioning before, the main issue from Manomano was this web mindset and not thinking about the app. So developing at the same time for the web and the application help changing this mindset and thinking on the app and the web at the same time. And as well as you are developing the features at the same time, you ensure some consistency between the web and the application, and all the knowledge stays in a single feature team. So based on all of this, we decided to go to this third option, and we called this Manomano.
So that's the moment where Manomano was born. So first of all, you may think or may wonder why did we call it Manomano and what does it mean? If you remember at the presentation of Manomano, I told you that the employees are named Manos and Manas. In French also, doing something à la mano means that you do it a bit on your own by yourself. So it looks like a bit like do it yourself. So we decided to also give it this name like with app. So doing this wordplay name, and that's where Manomano became true. But what is it exactly, Manomano? So why did we do that? Obviously, as I said before, the goal number one here is to reduce the feature gap between web and app to offer a consistent cross-device e-commerce experience to our users. How do we want to proceed? Well, by capitalizing on web's team expertise and capacity. Why? To better support the app strategy and reach our ambitious objective that we presented before. And what is it concretely? Well, what we will do is to enable web teams to develop on the app repository. So to allow them actually to have the full ownership of their scope on web and app devices. So now we're done with the genesis, and let's describe a bit the journey that started the same 12 months ago, but we are still in.
So once we decided which is the model we wanted to go on, it was time to go hands-on and define exactly how we wanted to do so. So we did 2 different workshops, one from the engineering side and one more from the product side. In the engineering side, we gathered together all the engineer managers and leads from the web and the application itself, and we started to define different points. The first one, it was the requirements for a web developer to be able to develop on the application. First of all, this developer needs to have a Mac. The reason is that for develop for iOS or to test on iOS, you need a Mac, and also it needs to be a front-end developer and a React developer. So the transition from React to React Native is easier. And in order to do this transition, we set up some trainings as well. We found an online course that it was focused actually for people that already knows React and wants to start developing for mobile in React Native. And we also implemented a workshop done by the mobile team and focus on the specificities of the Manomano application and all the third parties and all the setup that we have at Manomano. We also want to create a new community for everyone. And for that, we created some common forums, we created some Slack channels, we created some documentation, and there is some meetings that they are open to everyone to discuss any technical stuff about the mobile application. Regarding all the code that was going to be merged and to be on the production, we decided first that we will do peer reviews, so really reviewing together with the web developer and some people from the mobile. We quickly saw that this was going to be really time consuming, so we started to do the review anyway, but in an asynchronous way. And also we thought about the testing, and that it's important that all the teams are able to test on real devices, Android and iOS, but it's not doable to assume that we can provide to everyone an Android and iOS devices. So we decided to set up an online device farm. So anyone can go there and test on real devices for Android and iOS, and also we set up some devices on all the offices. So anyone can go to the office and test as well there on these devices. And finally, we discussed as well about the code maintenance, and whenever there is a new issue or something in the app, how to define who is responsible for that and how to identify the corresponding team.
So on product, we did exactly the same exercise. So we did this workshop, and what we identified here is first we need to define clearly what is the scope of each team. So the ownership, who is doing what. Well, to make it simple here, what I said before is that each team from the web would keep its own scope. It's just that from now on, they would develop on the desktop, the web mobile, plus the app mobile app. For the app, then what do we have still? Well, we kept the vision and strategy that was still in our ownership. We also had all the app specifics that will come soon, and also all the differentiative ones. And also as globally, we would keep all this app consistency and all the navigation part. Second point, and very important, is the release process. So we had to make a strong introduction to web PMs or like teams in general about the release process, because in web they can push in production whenever they want, while in the app we need to follow a 2 weeks cadence, and there is a bit of process to follow here. So we wanted to have a strong communication. The release process though stayed in the ownership of the app. We are still doing it, but now we are collaborating with other teams. Then the same than for the engineering parts, we needed some trainings for especially the PMs. Why? Because they need to discover a bit the app cultures, to get more familiar with these environments, and more specifically to know how to use all the tools that we are using in terms of configuration for the feature flag, for instance, or even for A/B testing. Very important points, but it sounds quite logic here. We needed a strong and quite of a lot alignment rituals. So especially before we start to have some roadmaps, so we needed some visibility from the upcoming features that will be integrated in the coming months. Every alignment also for the release process, and a bit of follow-ups also afterwards. Talking about also UX and design, each team in web has its own UX designer, and they would also have to now provide the mockups and all the designs for the web, but also for the app. So we would have to, from our own designer on the app side, to provide support, and also they would have to validate all the mockups that would come to be sure that we are keeping the consistency and the whole experience in the app. And last one, obviously, well, we needed very strong communication, because communication is key in this kind of transition. So now that we had our concept defined, we also even had listed our requirements and principle, it was time for us to start to test this solution with one team. So this is what we call the pilot. We had a time frame of approximately 3 months to do it. And first we set up an objective. So we decided that this team at the end of the 3 months was supposed to be autonomous on the mobile app environment and could implement some mobile app features from their own scope on a regular basis. How did we measure progress during the 3 months? Well, with two easy key results. The first one is at the end, we would ask the team that was part of this onboarding if they feel empowered and autonomous to develop on the app repository. And second one is about the features that they had to implement, if it was a success and if they managed to push it in one of our release. So the initiative to reach this objective was what we call the onboarding process. So again, this is happening in a quarter, so 3 months, and it's composed of 4 important pillars. The first one is the setup, so granting access to app-specific tools and helping setting up for this environment. Second one is the learning phase. So what we said about the course, the Udemy course, the workshops, and also some trainings for engineering, but also for product manager. Third phase is about the autonomy. So first we help them in selecting a small feature, because here the goal is not to implement the most impactful features, but just one. Then there will be all the phase of implementing up to the moment that the feature is part of a release. And without big surprise, the fourth one, constant support and help from our side. And guess what? Well, the pilot was considered as a success after these 3 months. So the model was validated and ready to be scaled up. So at the end of these 3 months, we received very valuable feedbacks from the team of the pilots to improve this onboarding process and better adapt it for the scale-up phase. Actually, it was kind of the same, so we were quite happy. Now the visions of the scale-up is to go from 2 teams developing on the app up to 13 teams within a year. So from that moment on, we started the communication about this concept Manomano. Why? Because not much people knew about it. So we wanted to let them know what is it, why are we doing this, because of the app priorities and the way that the organization should work from now on. And also, most importantly, how it will impact them as a team in terms of role, responsibility, and also scope and time. And then we had the first alignment with the teams that we thought should be the first one to be onboarded. So here is the phase of scaling up in which we are still in. So we started that in the last quarter of 2022, and we were onboarding up to 3 teams every quarter. In the meantime, we have introduced a matrix to be able to measure the progress made towards our objective, which was reducing the feature gap. So you can see here, this is not the most accurate matrix, I have to admit, but at least it's giving us a trend and seeing that we are going in the right direction and we have the expected impact. So on one hand, we had teams that were onboarded and that already developing some e-commerce feature from their own scope that have great impact on our traction metrics, talking here about CVR or average order value, for instance. To list a few, some product recommendation playlist, which is very specific to e-commerce, a loyalty program section that is also very specific, all the couponing experience was a feature that could be implemented by Manomano teams. And on our side, it could give us a bit more time and capacity to start to focus on app-specific feature as it was designed. So we're now starting to work on specific onboarding revamp for the app, a notification center very specific to the app, or even some wish list with some alertings and reminder about price drop and availability. So great.
So during all this scaling up, I thought in general, it has been a success. We also faced some challenges. The first one was about the release process, because on the mobile team, where we were only two mobile teams, we were really flexible during the release. We aim to release every 2 weeks, but whenever we almost finished a feature that we wanted to include, there was an issue that we wanted to fix, we're just delaying the release. And it was fine because it was an agreement between two teams. But as soon as we started to include more and more teams, this was chaotic because every team had a reason to wait 1 day. And while you were waiting, then another team needed another thing. So it was impossible to release at the end. And we decided to define a release process that we needed to follow, or we need to follow really strictly, as we want to release every 2 weeks. The first week and a half is for development, and then we do some manual test sessions to ensure that we didn't introduce any bug during this development. And then we have 2 days to fix all the issues that we may encounter. And whenever there is an issue that cannot be fixed in these 2 days, the feature related with this or the commit that created this bug, this is reverted and this will be included on the next release. So we can really release every 2 weeks.
Another challenge that we had to cope with is how to resolve problems in production. You know that in a web environment, when you detect a bug or an incident, well, you make a fix and you can push it directly in production. Well, in the app environment, that's not the case because of the release process. But actually, yes, we do have kind of a joker card, which is named code push. So code push is what is it? It's just to push a fix in a specific version without having to go through the store reviews. So you gain a lot of time, and it's also available for all the users. So as you might know already, with mobile app, if you detect a bug, we can use this code push and apply directly a fix in production. But again, this rule was working okay-ish, I would say, when we were only 2 teams. But the more we were onboarding teams, and the more chaotic it became. So a bit that the same for the release process, we had to be more strict and to follow some discipline here. So what we did very easily, we just define 3 categories of bugs that have, when they are identified in production, based on their impact on business metrics, for instance, or user experience. So we have categorized is with high, medium, and low. And for each of these categories, we apply the corresponding solution, which are, for the high one, the code push. We go directly and push something in production. For the medium, that would be a hotfix. Hotfix is actually also a release, but this is a release that contains only one fix and that is made without following the cadence, the normal cadence of the release. And for the low priority bug, well, actually, everybody needs to wait for the next release. So that's all for our journey up to today. And now let's see what introducing this model of app Manomano has as impact in our day-to-day in Manomano.
So after all this year implementing this new model, we are still facing some challenges that we are working on. I will just mention them here, but we will go deeply on the next slides. The first thing is that the mobile team is still the bottleneck on all the merge requests, as teams are still not 100% autonomous. As we explained before, we have a lot of issues with the releases, so we need to be strict on the process and we want to improve this. And finally, the designs from other teams are still web-oriented and they need to be better onboarded in the mobile part. So regarding the certification process, as I said, there was teams are not still 100% autonomous. All the merge requests need to be verified by the mobile team, and we want to change this. So we set up a certification process. It's a self-assessment certification where we defined different steps that the web developer needs to do in order to consider themselves that they can write on their own, that they can drive on their own and they know enough. They are related with development, for the release process, and with monitoring. Once they've completed all the steps, the last step is to define the code ownership of this team. So from now on, they are completely autonomous to merge to the main branch whatever they want inside their scope. And now it's the other way around. It's the mobile team that whenever wants to do any implementation or any change in their code, is the corresponding web team who needs to approve this merge request, as from now on they are the owners and they need to be okay with the changes that we are doing and they need to be notified about them. Apart from that, as I said, we are really strict with the release process, and in order to improve this, we want to reduce all the manual test sessions that we are doing. So we want to review our test strategy to allow this, and we are right now focusing on the end-to-end. We aim to run them all, everything before merging to the main branch, and we are rewriting all the test suite to really do not a lot of tests, but relevant tests that ensure us some confidence when we are going to release. So this way we may be able to reduce the frequency that we release, and even allow web teams to release on their own, as right now only the mobile team is responsible for that.
Another problem that we had to face. Now let's talk a bit about design. As we mentioned already, we kind of had a miss or a fail or even a learning that we consider more of a learning with design. Why? Because we thought that in our communication to Manomano, it was easy to understand that the designer would also have to provide the design for the web, but also for the app. But that was not the case. So our miss here is that we should have integrated design in some trainings and in the onboarding. So if we had to redo some things, that would be the main thing that we would change and improve. Let me give you two examples of what happened after two teams were onboarded. Well, the first one, for instance, that was already developing their first feature, at one point contacted me saying that, oh, we are ready to develop one feature, but we are waiting for your designer to provide us with the mockups, with the design, which actually that's not true. Like normally in the concept that we have at Manomano is a designer from the web that should from now on design also for the app. And there is a support from our designer and validation. So one first fail from our side. Second one is another team that did a bit differently. They did the design by their own and started to implement the feature, but the design was not checked and validated by our designer app. So it was not really matching or fitting perfectly with the experience or the consistency of the app. So that was also a problem, a bit on the other side. So yes, so one learning is that we should include design in the onboarding, and we missed that part. But that's not all. Now let's talk about the design system, because we believe that for the future, a design system will also help a lot with our new organization. So why? First, what is a design system? As you may know, I would say that it's a product to serve a product, and it provides a style guide, a governance, a components library, or some documentation, and how actually it could help us in the concept of Manomano. Well, first, for our users, I was talking about delivering some cross-device experience, and here I would definitely offer a better experience consistency between web and app. And second point is also for us as a team in Manomano, we would be way more efficient in design, development, and testing. So that's why now we are currently working on a design system, and we really believe that it will benefit web and app. Now, I guess there was also an impact of this Manomano, is the impact that it had on my own role or other PMs that are working also in the app. So I have chosen three here. The first one is that from now on, I need to be the app experts and reference for the other PM. Before, I used to be just the app PM, but nobody really, that was not so important. But now here, like I need to be here for, and I need to be available, I would say, for support and help, because there is this transition phase that takes time. And as we started it, I need to be here and helping. Second one is also all about the animation of, I would say, a dynamic new community, which is Manomano. So that's very important. Second point is how from now on, I also need to influence other PM in their roadmap. No influencing like you should do this, whatever, but just starting to have a bit visibility and try to remind them that actually the priority of the app is important, and it's not only for us, but it's for the entire company. So this requires some new alignment before the quarter, during the quarter, and all the follow-ups, obviously. And last one is kind of obvious. It's also, yes, this is kind of new. So we need to constantly improve this organization and its function. So I need to listen, collect feedback, and then based on that, identify friction and new opportunity for improvement.
So the new role as mobile developer, so the role as mobile developer is also changing. And actually the first 2 points, they are really similar to what Grégoire mentioned. All the mobile developers need to be experts and reference for the other teams. They need to be able to support and to help them and also to promote this new community of mobile developers. They need to be able to influence other developers to explain them and to be sure that they know, they are aware about the differences between the web and the application, and that sometimes it's not just possible to reuse whatever you have on web because of these differences. And because now all the web and app features will be developed by web developers, this means that the mobile developers need to increase their knowledge on the native side, because now they will focus more on mobile specific things and also on core stuff, like, for example, the performance on all the app.
And to finish, we made a selection of some takeaway for you. The one that we think could be keys to succeed if you are trying to reproduce what we've done here in Manomano.
So from an engineering point of view and from a developer point of view, one of the things that it was we think it's really important in order to succeed is that all the mobile developers need to be onboarded on this. They need to understand why we are doing this, and they need to be willing to do it, as they will spend a lot of time reviewing my requests and helping other teams. Also, the communication between teams is really, really important, because the mobile team was used to develop on all the application and just do the changes they wanted on all the different domains. And now this is not like this anymore. And whenever a mobile team wants to do any change, they need to notify the corresponding team. And finally, the release process, as we already said during the presentation, we had a lot of issues with that because it can be very confusing for web teams to understand the differences between the web and the application. So it's really important to ensure that everyone understands it, that is well communicated, and that everyone is able to follow this release process.
And now a quick sum up on the product side. So yeah, for me, the product trio collaboration is key for that transition success. By product trio, what I mean is so tech, engineering, product, and design. I've mentioned before that there was a fail, so a big learning on our side, that we didn't introduce design, and I think that was one of the problems that we had. So I would say that a trio collaboration is definitely key for the success of this transition. Second point is that acquiring an app culture takes time. You've seen that the onboarding is lasting like 3 months, but after that, it's not done, because all the app environment is so different from the web that it takes more time. It takes maybe months. So you need to be there as a support, and you need to help people to make this full switch possible. Another one is we've just seen that roles and responsibilities are changing for people, and some people will really like it because they see it as opportunity, learning, grow, and some other they don't like it at all. So just be aware of that, and I would say try to be empathetic with those persons. This one, the fourth one, is kind of obvious, but as soon as you're making a change, you have a new solution, it's because you have identified the problem. You are blocked somewhere, or there was something not going wrong, so you're expecting to improve something. So while you're making the change, really don't forget to check if you are moving the needle as expected, if you are going in the right direction, and if you have the desired outcome. And last one, you've seen, we've talked a lot about the concept of Manomano. So give it a name to this concept, because it will help you to make it real. And you also need to create this community and market the concept a lot, because you need to spread that, and it will definitely increase the adoption, and people will accept that way more. So to conclude, when we started 2 years ago in Manomano, we felt like it was really two teams, app versus the web. and we were trying to collaborate. It was going also right, but no, we really managed to do this transition that everybody now is conscious that the app is not only us, but actually from now on, the app is together, like it's everybody. So it's not just app, it's web and app. So I will finish on that. And thanks a lot for your time and for listening to us.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Susana. Thank you, Grégoire. I think we have some questions in the chat, if you want to directly look at them. And if you have more other questions, you can now type them on the chat. I don't know, Luis, if we can give voice to everyone, or they just type on the chat. Okay. Yeah, Susana, Grégoire, if you want to start answering the questions, I don't know if you can see them.
Yes.
Yes. So the first question is by are you using tools like NX monorepo? I guess it's for you, Susana.
Yeah, so not really. We actually explored the other way around, which is using Model Federation to stop using a mono repository and use like microservices using Repack, like it's like Webpack, but for React Native. But we encountered some issues, some performance issues, and that we didn't went this through. Then I think all of the questions are more technical, so I will go through them. Then you also asked about if we are using web workers and some type of state management based in Redux. Yeah, we are using Redux actually for store management, and we try to use as much as possible the same tools on web than on app. So it's easier for everyone, and there is the same convention, at least for the logic at the end is JavaScript, and it's the same for both of them. And then regarding the question of, well, I go one by one, but I don't know if there is any comment on any of them or they are clarified. So yeah, I'll go by one. Then you also asked about why is not Manomano organized following the DD principles. We actually follow the domain principle at Manomano. Every feature team has a defined domain and scope, and an associated engineering lead, project manager, and as many front-end and back-end developers as is necessary. But it's true that when we created the mobile application and there was not the knowledge, we created a team to really push this application, and it was not possible to follow these principles. But at the end, what we are doing with Manomano is that every team will has their domain, and they will develop for web and application, and the mobile team will be focused more on core stuff. And then finally, for the design system like Figma, well, I think that was already answered a bit by Grégoire. That's something we are working on, and we are actually using Figma for that, and we want to make some consistency between web and app design.
Well, thanks a lot for that question. I don't know if other people want to still ask. It's still we still have time, so feel free to use the chat or the feature Q&A.
No, Susana, Grégoire, do you have something else to add? If not, if we have no question, just thank you to you. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Luis, for making this happen, for organizing this.